Oh, yeah, my family was just, my uncle was a gym teacher, my aunt was a gym teacher, my grandfather was a manager or coached the semi-pro baseball league team that I actually played for later on. Sports were just ingrained in the Cash family in Lansdale, Pennsylvania, and I just soaked it all in. I played shortstop and pitcher, and so I had a fairly good arm. I had good control, but I didn't have great speed, so there was no big future for me in the game. I first came to WVEC because I loved the way they did things here. The station did things. Journalism is the highest thing on the list. It wasn't fluff and anything else. It was journalism has always been at the forefront of what we do here, and I noticed that right away, and it got my attention. I remember my first weekend that I worked. I was working weekends at the time. My first weekend, it was the Super Bowl, and the Bears, who were unbelievable at that time, the Bears won the Super Bowl that weekend that I worked. I also remember my first interview ever was with Zeke Avery, the head coach of Booker T. Washington High School and their basketball team. Zeke was a great guy, and they were the reigning state champions. And that was my first interview. I remember that distinctly. I also remember my first live shot I ever did in my career, even though I worked 3 years before I got here. My first live shot ever was with J.R. Reed, of course, North Carolina in the NBA, in Kempsville High School, at the Virginia Beach Jamboree. So I remember several firsts. I was almost hoping this was going to be the last place I ever worked, because all I ever wanted to do in this business with my career was get to some place where I could, by television, enter people's houses and be in their house, in their living room, become part of their family through television, and then just stick around and be a part of that family for a long time. And I think that's one thing that I've accomplished. Of course, some people might think I'm their weird uncle who won't leave, but, so be it. Early in my career, I was looking around for other opportunities and came close to a couple places. And then I realized, why would I leave such a good thing, which is what I have right here? I mean, the ocean's right down the street here. The mountains are just a couple hours away there. The people are great. The sports are good. And the people I work with and for are hard to beat. So it was a good situation. And it's a great place to raise a family, which is what we did here. I didn't have to drag my kids around anywhere else around the country. We were able to do it here. That's one thing about my whole career is that, I get paid to have fun. Who does that? That's pretty cool. I think the highlight of my career, if one thing had to stand out the most, it was the 1998 Daytona 500, when Dale Earnhardt Sr. had finally won the Daytona 500. I was in Victory Lane when he drove his car into Victory Lane, celebrated in Victory Lane. I was there in Victory Lane, and then 3 hours later, he came back to Victory Lane with a cigar in one hand, a champagne glass in the other, and we got to do a one-on-one interview with the Intimidator. That was a highlight. Just because you go to these events and you're working, they're premier events, and you soak it in as a fan. Trust me on that one. You really get into the experience. And sometimes, I'll have to say, sometimes you become a little partial instead of impartial. But I take in the whole experience when I go to these sporting events, and I soak it all. I feel the energy of the crowd. I feel the energy of the players. I feel the sound. I feel it all. Part of my job, a big part of my job, is trying to understand what the people want to see. And I misjudged the value and how interested the people were in the Nats. Yes, we had games on all year, but I didn't go to the World Series. That's my biggest regret, was not going to the Nationals World Series. If I think of my friendships at WVEC, Jeff Lawson might be the chief meteorologist, but he spends more time in my office than I do. I don't know how that works. And David Allen, we're so close as good friends, even though he loves the Pirates, and I love the Phillies and the Eagles, and he loves the Steelers. There's just been some great relationships that I remember forever. Joe Flanagan, of course. We're still on speed dial, even though he's been retired for 5 years. And Joe is just a great guy and a tremendous storyteller. And it was one thing that all those three people I have mentioned, they all have in common, and so many of my other friends here, just great storytellers. And I'm a sucker for a good story. So it helps my friendships with those people. I'd like to be remembered as the guy who got it right, as the guy who had fun, and as the guy who was a good storyteller and was able to make a connection with the viewers. I'm looking forward to golf, being with my grandsons, and playing golf with my grandsons when they get old enough, and spending a lot more time with my wife, who our hours are so different that we seldom see each other during the week. And now when we both retire eventually, when she retires, we'll be in the same house, seeing each other all the time. We'll have to see how that goes. For those people who have watched me for 36 plus years, I would say, thanks for letting me into your home. I can't think of a better place to be. I can't think of a better community. I can't think of a better place to live. It's all there. And I'm so thankful that this thing has worked for so long.